feel called to make this video right now. I've just finished a quote and I've got one more to go to, so I'm going to have to make it quick. But I've just been to go and see a landlord. He called and wanted a quote. I gave him a rough price over the phone. I think you and me as tradesmen both feel this, if you've been through it yet or not, but there's generally two types of people I don't like to go and quote because I generally don't win them. It's landlords and it's renters, it's the tenants. You want to go and quote people that own their own house because generally speaking the landlord doesn't see value in getting some work. They only get the work done they have to. They don't like getting extra work done that's not absolutely necessary because they're trying to squeeze all of the juice out of the fruit and make as much profit on the property as possible, and the renters aren't inclined to spend a lot of money on it because they're not going to reap the benefit when it's sold, or you know, whatever the thing is, they're just not going to reap the benefit of it. It's kind of like tinting the windows on a leased car. Is it worth it? Because at the end of the day you're going to get no value for it. You're going to, you know, you'd probably have to get that undone before you get the car back. It's kind of on that same thing. But I gave him the price and he said okay on the phone, and I'm like, okay, if you're saying okay to the price on the phone, I'll come out and see you. And I went out to go and see him, and he had a couple of recessed trays in there. There was a couple of things. There was the grass itself, and I said, well, if you're renting out, why don't we go for a lower grade grass? And he's like, no, let me have a look at the other stuff. What's your most popular one? And I showed him it, and he's like, well, how much is the price difference between the lowest and one of the newest and the nicer one? And I said, oh, you know, you got 36 square meters here, it'll be about 100 quid. And he's like, is that it, 100 quid? And I said, well, you know, I come out and see landlords, and normally, you know, if I said the other one was 40 quid cheaper, they'd be going for that because they're just trying to get it for as low as possible. And so we carry on with the quote, and there's two drainage trays, two manhole access covers, and he says, oh, what can we do about these? Do you just go round these? And I said, well, there's two options. There's the cheap way and the nice way. I'll go through both. The cheap way is, we just go round them and leave them showing. It's like them the silver steel ones. I said, or the nice way, you're looking at 125 quid each, so 250 quid for both. We can take it out, we can put a recessed manhole in, fill it up with concrete, and then put grass inside, and then all you're left with is the kind of outside plastic and steel trim. And I said, but I don't know if it's worth it for you. And he said, well, you know, 250 quid, it might be. And I said, well, if you're just renting it out anyway, why don't you just put the 250 quid in your pocket? Why don't you just keep the 250 quid? And he said, well, it's not, maybe I won't get any more in rent for paying this extra £250. I might not get any more rent, but I might rent it out faster. And when I come to sell it, I might get some more money out of it, which is generally not how landlords think about things. When I've been to see them, the landlords I've been to see are like, how can I save 20 quid? How can I save 50 quid? What can we do to bring the quote down by 100 quid? Whereas this guy's like, you know, it might not necessarily make any extra money getting this done, but if it helps me get tenants in faster. And the other big thing is, when I've been doing properties, what I've noticed is if I leave them the better finish and tidiness I leave the house, they tend to take care of it. If I leave someone with a slightly messy garden, they don't feel inclined to look after it. But if I give them a nice, clean, pristine garden, they feel an inclination to take care of it. And I thought about this, like in parts of our business, is there certain things that won't necessarily make us any more money, but could they help us sell a job? You know, if you're winning 3 out of 10 jobs, is there something we could do to start winning 4 out of 10 jobs and not necessarily make any more money on each job? Because you can only put the price up so far. How else could we bring value to win more work without not necessarily getting more money, but possibly? So I was thinking about this, and things like, you know, wearing uniform clothes. Maybe you're not necessarily going to get any more money from wearing that, you know, printed attire. Maybe it's having, I haven't got it with me, but maybe it's having like a printed quote book with your own business name on it and your own questionnaire thing of things that you tick off for the job. Maybe it's giving the customer a call half an hour before you come. There's so many things that we could do that don't necessarily mean you could charge more money, but maybe you could. But even if it just meant I win an extra 10% more of the jobs that I go and quote than I'm quoting now. And I think, you know, landlords are missing a trick here, because I think he's completely right. Like, if you rented a house and the landlord gave you a shitty house with a shitty garden, you would just leave it shitty when you left, wouldn't you? You'd just leave, you'd just give it, you'd be like, well, if you left me with a bit of a mess, I'll leave you with a bit of mess. Whereas when someone lends you something and it's perfectly nice and pristine, this is in like every other part of life as well, then you feel inclined to give it back to them. If you borrow someone's car and they give it to you clean, you feel inclined to give it back to them clean. So there's all these things that I just thought was really interesting, that I think a lot of people are missing a trick with this, is that when I go and see a lot of landlords, it's like, how can I get it as cheap as possible to squeeze as much money out of it as possible? Whereas this guy's saying, well, maybe I get the same amount of money, but if I get tenants in quicker, doesn't that make sense? I think it makes sense. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next one.